I know it doesn't matter, but if any, this should help. If I can,
I love that game.
this should help. I know it's a
Okay.
little glary, but
No.
I know Peyton
Is that-
Hillis was on a cover, but
He's pardon my language, everyone, but you beat me to the punch on that one.
what's going on, everyone? Welcome to the first ever video Audible Sportscast. How's it going, everyone? It's been a minute.
Good.
Not bad.
Excited. This is a new experience for all of us. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I mean, we've played
Really?
we played a little bit of it, on live and everything, but it's a lot. This is a lot different. We don't, you're not live, so hopefully this goes smoothly and we continue doing it forever. But I mean, it's been a while. There's a lot to talk about that's happened in the NFL since. I know it's kind of the dog days of the NFL, but stuff still happens. Stuff is happening. Training camp, as of time of recording, has pretty much been going on for a couple of days now. So I mean, let's get right into it. One of the biggest news things that happened while we were gone was arguably the worst owner in the NFL, maybe NFL history, depending on how. I don't know who ranks ownership of things, but one of the worst owners we've ever seen in the NFL finally sold the Washington Commanders. Let me look. Josh, they sold it. They kind of were forcing him out. I mean, there was the legal issues that the NFL has, been working on for years now. I mean, that's how John Gruden lost his job, because of stuff that came out during that case. So yeah,
But either way, he made so much money on that franchise. He's fine.
Oh yeah, I mean, looking into the details, he sold it to the Josh Harris group, which Josh Harris does own, also is part of the group that owns the 76ers and the New Jersey Devils. But now with
Magic Johnson involved in it?
Yes, he is one of the only people recognizable. I mean, there's a billionaire who's also a DC native in the likes of, if I can look at my notes so I get his name right, Mitchell Rales, if I'm saying that name right. But yeah, for $6.05 billion, the team was sold for. Which, if anyone's keeping track, last summer the Broncos were sold for $4.65 billion. So that's a pretty big increase in sale of a team.
And I'm not gonna lie. I believe the Broncos are worth more as a franchise because of recent. The Redskins haven't been relevant or Commanders. I apologize. The Commanders haven't been relevant for a long time.
I'll let you take a guess. I mean, Joe Theismann, yeah, they won a Super Bowl, I believe, 9-8. I literally just did them on TikTok.
Super Bowl in the 90s under Mark Rippon, but
that's true.
They never won. They lost to Buffalo.
They won. They beat Buffalo. Remember, Buffalo never won a Super Bowl. They went to 4 straight.
Oh, you're right.
They lost, and all of their losses came to NFC East teams. The Cowboys twice, Giants in the wide left or wide right. I forget which way it was. I mean, either way, it was left or right to somebody. And then the Washington team, that is a new name. And speaking of a new name, one of the things that has been talked about now since, I mean, Magic Johnson even came out and talked about it, is a new rebrand. A lot of people aren't really happy with the Commanders rebrand. And I mean, a lot of people weren't happy with the rebrand from the Redskins to begin with. I mean, some people, we don't have to get into that, of course, but should they rebrand? Obviously, they need a new stadium. Should they completely leave the DC area? I mean, where else could they go? I mean, let's kind of talk about that. I mean, that's kind of something that seems likely. I mean, we know there's going to be a new stadium, so should there be a new location?
I don't think they're going to leave. Yeah, I don't think they're going to leave DC, but I definitely think they should rename.
I do think they should rename. I don't think they should leave the nation's capital. That's what makes them special, is being in the nation's capital.
True. I mean, that is a good point. And I think
If they move, they're just gonna hurt themselves.
true. And if they do move, more than likely, it's not like they're gonna be like Baltimore and just go to pack.
If they move to Chicago.
You think if the Bears leave Chicago, they could swoop in? I mean, I don't know if that. I mean, that is technically a bigger market than the
They've been talking about 2 teams in Chicago for 20 years, off and on.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like if they were to move, how far would they move? Like, I don't think they would move that far, and where else would they move that's close to DC? I mean,
I just don't think it's worth moving, because then you're rebuilding a fan base.
that's true.
100 years from scratch, because all those people who used to be Redskins, Commanders fans probably aren't tagging along.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of seeing that with Oakland right now with the A's in baseball. Like, no one wants to, they're staying to sell the team because they don't want to leave. They don't want their their team to leave, and we're seeing more people come to games now that there is the chance for them to leave than before, because they just don't want them gone, and it's just a horribly ran situation. I know Vegas is like the place to kind of be right now in the sense of like franchises.
Isn't that far for Oak? So you can still be a Raiders fan living in Oakland, because it's like a 3-hour drive.
Yeah,
that's no different. I'm a Bears fan. I'm in Milwaukee. So it's, if you look at it from that.
Yeah.
I
mean, baseball's a little different too, because it's like a lot of people go to games because they're close, and there's a lot more games too. So it's a little bit different than moving an NFL team where you have only a few games. I mean, if you're not a good franchise, which for the most part right now all of our franchises kind of are, we only get to watch 8 games, if not 9 games, because now there's the switch of how many home games a team gets. So, yeah, I mean, I agree, definitely, depending on they need a new stadium for sure. So it depends where they can find a good price to build one. If not right on top of that one, I'm not sure how exactly it'll work, because it's just a horrible stadium. We've seen it, like, the stands fall on Jalen Hurts. There's like poop pipes.
If we're gonna talk about people who need to sell, I think the Arizona Cardinals need a new owner.
Yeah.
Only because they're still charging their players for things. And to me, if I'm your player, any team that can sell for billions of dollars should never be charging their player for food, for this, for that. It's kind of absurd.
Yeah.
Colleges don't charge them. I understand it's a business, but you're in a different category when you're in that business. Your whole point is to take care of your players so they want to stay. And I mean, I hate to say this, but at this point, as a Bears fan, I'm ready to move on from the McCaskies. I love the heritage, and I don't think they'll ever be forgotten.
No.
It's just, they're just too putsy for me. I think that's the best way to say it. They just can't make decisions. Like, this new stadium might not work. Soldier Field, they'll never be able to own it because the city will never sell it to them. So it's frustrating.
It is. And it's one of the bottom tier. I mean, even if they were to get Soldier Field, like, then they would have to buy the renovations for it, because right now it is not.
Yes, that's true. But, yeah, I know. I don't think either of you have been to Lambeau. Like,
no.
That it has they're both classic fields, but Lambeau's never going to go anywhere. They're not going to tear it down and rebuild it. They've added on. They made it really nice, and it's a tourist attraction. Soldier Field is no longer a tourist attraction. It was at one point, and you even have things around it that are tourist attractions, like the Field Museum's right across the street, correct?
Shed Aquarium's right there. Yeah,
it's
literally.
Aquarium.
Yeah.
They all
like,
share the same parking.
Lambeau has tours and things like that to engage the fans. They have restaurants inside for you to go eat, and like if the city of Chicago is not a very smart city currently, where they just aren't. Because if they lose the Bears, the downtown bars, restaurants, hotels financially will lose probably half of their revenue, at least.
Yeah, it definitely would go down. And I mean, even thinking about where, like, you're seeing a lot of these, or a good chunk of these franchises even move from inner city. Like, Chicago's right there in the city, right on arguably one of the busiest roads in the U.S., at least in the Midwest. So, like, parking's, I mean, all the games I've been to, I've had to walk miles just to find parking, it feels like.
But that's the culture of it, and it being on the lake is what makes it cool. Yeah. It's who knows. I just think here, if I were a team, like here, if I were to pick an ideal person to buy my team, the Bears, it'd be Jeff Bezos. And the reason why is all he wants to do is win. And he's shown he wins at everything he does. Look at Amazon. Like he's a guy who's not going to tolerate losing. He just won't. He's also going to make sure the facilities are top tier. So, I mean, that's just my take on it.
And the employees breaking their backs.
Yeah, I mean, not
no bathroom breaks.
Hey, business is where you're going to keep that type of business out of this. This is sports business, not. I still get my packages. That's all I care about.
Players would be peeing on the field.
No, I just think that, I get it. Some of these owners are cheap, and that's business. But this is a different type of business. This is not your normal. You can't run it like a factory. You just can't.
Yeah.
But, yeah, moving on. We should go to our next chapter.
Yeah, well, real quick, I mean, I know you mentioned Bears, Cardinals, a couple of other names of teams that I had found that people have mentioned probably need to sell. The Chargers, who, if you think about it, they're currently they don't own the stadium they are fans of, or they are a part of, but at the same time, like there's some financial situations that obviously we don't have to get into, but that's a team a lot of people have mentioned. The Seahawks, the Saints, those are the all.
I don't know about. The Chargers spent some money, and we'll get into that later. But that shows me that maybe they don't need. Maybe the owner's turning a new leaf.
Yeah, or just simple supply and demand telling us that they needed to pay him, and it's where the market's at. But we'll get into Justin Herbert's contract here in a second. It is on the agenda. But real quick before we get into that, had a cool idea for a segment we can do. It is that time, the Hall of Fame game. I mean, by the time this comes out, will be days away. So, or potentially, it's going to depend when this comes out, I guess. But so obviously, every year, new players get in the Hall of Fame, and there's always snubs. There's always these people argue, and it feels like on Twitter, I'm seeing people who are supposed to be breaking news people be like, "Oh, is this dude a Hall of Famer or not?" So it got to me thinking, all right, what's some people who are Hall of Famers, not Hall of Famers? So let's just go over the segment real quick. Hall of Fame or nah. So I have a couple players here, and I want either are they a Hall of Famer or not. So starting off, Roger Craig. He's the first.
Third, I think he would be a third ballot to me.
Let me look up his.
Well, I have his stats for you right here. He was the first running.
His stats, so
yeah. That's on me. I should have said them before I even finished it. But first running back with 1,000 yards rushing and receiving. Only two other running backs have done that since: Marshall Faulk and Christian McCaffrey, who's currently playing, so he's not even eligible for the Hall of Fame. Which, depending on how the rest of
never did.
No, Forte at one time held the record for most receptions by a running back in a season, but Christian McCaffrey also broke that. He was a three.
Just you saying that, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean,
people get in with even less.
Yeah, I mean, three-time Super Bowl champ. He was Offensive Player of the Year the year he did that. He's a key part of that of those 49ers later 80 teams. His
yardage from scrimmage as a running back to me has to dictate something because there's so many running backs in the Hall of Fame already. So to me, you need to look at other positions, and I don't want to be biased, so I'm not even going to say the player that hasn't gotten in yet. But, you got to start looking at other positions. So that's I think he deserves it at some point, but it shouldn't be like a first ballot. He's had some accolades that it took a while to break, many, many, many years. And I'm not knocking him. I just sometimes you got to go to the second or third tier. It just is what it is.
Yeah, and I mean, you say he's a third ballot, but he's been someone waiting for nearly 20, 25 years to get in the NFL or the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I think he deserves it.
Then he is, yeah.
Yeah,
I think at some point.
And he's just been someone who, and right now he is on the list that came out, I think literally later this week, of players who are eligible for next year for being older players. I know Steve McMichael is on that list, which it's a shame that his health reasons might be the reason he gets in the Hall of Fame, even though he's a great player. We don't have to get into him.
But he would have gotten in eventually anyway, so I think it's fair to accelerate the process because of his current.
Yeah, it kind of is a sucky situation that it came to that to help push it when he.
I hate how the Hall of Fame ballots and being eligible is ran. And
it's terrible. I don't like it.
Yeah.
It's very favoritized.
Mm-hmm.
It's very recent player favoritized.
Oh yeah,
and I don't like it.
It's like all these
you got people from the.
Well, I was just gonna say it's very big. There's if you're not a first ballot Hall of Famer, why even get in? So they're pushing for all these guys, and Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, guys like that, But then when you add Calvin Johnson was the first ballot, Ray Lewis, Brian Urlacher, there's a lot of guys.
No offense to Calvin Johnson, he should not have been a first ballot.
Neither T.O. wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer, and I'd say he deserves it more than Calvin.
He does.
T.O. is in debatable top 3 receiver of all time, mixed in with Randy Moss and Jerry Rice
and Larry Fitzgerald.
Larry's fourth. He's fourth.
He's up there.
He can't.
You have to argue he's up there. Give him Joe Montana, and he might be number 1. But that's besides the point. We're not arguing. We don't have to argue Larry Fitzgerald being a Hall of Famer.
No.
But speaking of wide receivers, someone I always hear come up of if he's a Hall of Famer or not. The numbers don't match up, but the accolades do. And you're probably already guessing who I'm going to say. It's Super Bowl MVP, 3-time Super Bowl champ, 6,822 receiving yards, 36 touchdowns, and before Travis Kelce broke it, I believe, this year, he was the leading playoff receiver of all time. It's Julian Edelman.
Not yet.
Yeah. I knew you were going to say that as soon as you said you already.
I like Jules. I really do. But I don't think you can, he's got some great, the catch against Atlanta. Great memorable moments. But it's tough for me because if let's just say he were to get in before someone like Larry Fitz, right? That would not make sense to me.
No.
That's kind of, yeah. Eventually, I think so, just based on his playoff performances. So
problem he didn't play long. I think that hurts him in the.
Yeah. The only situation I would, if I was in control of it, would be 50 years from now.
Yeah, I don't know. It's maybe not 50 years, but definitely he shouldn't be a first
I
ballot,
think he
second
should
ballot.
wait.
Yeah, he definitely should. There's a lot of guys who deserve it more, who will deserve it more. But like Julio AB, I think should before him maybe. But AB, there's also the
As you say, AB, but here I don't think his off the field antics should affect his Hall of Fame.
It shouldn't.
It should be statistically based, but it did hurt T.O. It took him longer than it should have because of how people perceived him. But I don't think personal opinions on players by these people voting should count. It should be completely subjective.
It should be what you did. I think part of the problem with that is because it's not only what you did on the field, but what you did for football. So people also not contradict it, but take the negative effects of that, which causes that. Like, when you look at like a guy like Kurt Warner, he was great story, great off the field guy, like, and that helped push his career or his like being he was a first ballot Hall of Famer if I remember right. So like using the same logic, they use it, and that's what makes it worse. And I agree that maybe I don't know if he should be a first ballot kind of guy, but he's someone who should get in, who's going to wait, unfortunately.
Well, I don't know if you have any quarterbacks on your list, but I just want to bring up
two.
one. Okay, I'll wait.
Well, are they two guys who have played in the last couple years? One, a.k.a. retired too early.
One would like to be a backup right now / starter.
Okay, yeah, I have him on the list, so we'll get to him. But before that, I have I have a couple other running backs, but we don't have to get into them because two of them will agree. One, honestly, it's a 50-50, but I want to say this receiver. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to talk about the receiver. Brandon Marshall. His numbers, if we're going to say AB, Julio, even Julian Edelman should get in. Brandon Marshall, he'll get in. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Second
pass.
One of his personalities may, the other may not.
Yeah. I mean, if Reggie Wayne has waited a couple years, I think Brandon Marshall should.
Reggie Wayne's got better stats.
And he's not in yet. He's waited 2-3 years now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's other receivers that deserve it before him, but I think he deserves it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a problem with it becoming such a passing league too. Is there's more receivers with more yards and more numbers that people say are Hall of Fame worthy, and then it becomes like, oh, is it a Hall of Good player, a Hall of Great player, a Hall of Fame player?
Yeah,
it's just,
why like Roger Craig thing to me is there's other running backs with more accolades than him, same as Edelman, and it's like they will get there, but like Torrey Holt, he's been waiting for years, him and that crooked finger, but
yeah.
All right, moving.
Yeah. Okay. We mentioned the quarterbacks, and I know exactly who you are talking about.
Sure.
2015 MVP. Could have won a Super Bowl, but didn't want to dive on the fumble. Obviously, he's one of the best rushing quarterbacks of all time. He actually leads the NFL for career rushing touchdowns and in a season and career. I mean, I already mentioned the MVP. He was part of one of the best teams of the 2010s, you can argue, even if they didn't win the Super Bowl in Super Bowl 50. Obviously, I'm talking about Cam Newton. Is Cam Newton a Hall of Famer?
If Andrew Luck's in the conversation, then Cam Newton.
Yeah, because he has more accolades than Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck's only brought up because of what he could have been.
Well, that and he drug a horrible team 4 years to 11-5, 4 years straight.
Yeah, but was there a Super Bowl?
No, that's my point. Is that's what he's regarded for in the.
See, that's my problem. Is like you could take a guy. Hate to say this, and Jeff's gonna know probably who I'm gonna bring up here. But if you're like sometimes got to base it off stats. But like I don't think Jay Cutler's a Hall of Famer. But if you looked at his past, stop it. He's got better stats than Troy Aikman for his career. More yards, more touchdowns, less interceptions.
Well, Troy Aikman's a fraud. But, yeah.
Well, Troy Aikman had like the best teams ever with him. So,
Yeah, that's
but you gotta like. I don't think Andrew Luck actually deserves to ever be. Had he stayed healthy, for sure, Hall of Fame.
I
He didn't
agree.
play.
Yeah,
He didn't play long enough. So
yeah, that's my
it's not fair to the guys who are waiting for just because Andrew Luck's a great guy. So that's like to me like saying should Tim Tebow be in the Hall of Fame?
I mean, he's
No.
college football Hall of Fame, definitely.
yeah,
You know, I have a tough time with that because I really do like Andrew Luck.
yeah.
And I understand why he left. Injuries. Yeah, I think he could still play, but he's choosing a long-term life, a nice long-term life, health and all that stuff over football, which is fine because Luke Kuechly did the same thing.
Yep.
Yeah, to be fair, Tim Tebow's not on Andrew Luck's or anyone's level in that
But-
caliber, or even. But yeah, I agree.
Ask people questions. Most people know Tim Tebow better than they do Andrew Luck. Just saying.
Well, how much of that too is because of college football? Like Tim Tebow is literally one of the best college football players of all time.
But hold on, there was Tebow mania in the NFL for that year.
Yeah, and he still couldn't.
Andrew Luck.
He couldn't
there
throw a
was no
spiral.
Luck.
He got.
There was- You know, but that's the thing is, I don't think any of that stuff should come. It should be statistically based. That's it. It should personalities. The Hall of Fame's not meant for, oh, that guy wasn't a role model because he ripped off his jersey and walked off on Tom Brady. It
Yeah.
shouldn't matter. The Hall of Fame's for stats.
Yeah.
That's an accolade. That to me is what it's about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Cam Newton is a second ballot. He deserves it eventually.
Okay. When you say
No,
second ballot, you don't mean the second year he's eligible. You just mean he gotta wait a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. Let me rephrase that. Second tier.
Okay. Because when you said like third ballot, I'm like, okay, that makes a lot more sense, and I agree with that. Like Cam Newton's probably a guy.
That's what I meant. That's what I meant when I said it was more like second or third tier, and maybe Andrew Luck will make it. But I just think, I mean, obviously Cam Newton deserves it more than him.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. If Andrew Luck is in talks for it, Cam Newton definitely
Oh, for sure.
belongs there.
And
So
I like Andrew Luck better as a person than Cam Newton, but that's not how it should be taken.
yeah,
Yeah.
if we can play the if game, but if Andrew Luck played a full career, yeah, he'd definitely blow Cam out of the water. But that's not. Yeah,
It's
that's
like-
not the point at all.
Yeah. We're in a situation.
Yeah, you got any more wide receivers on this list?
Obviously I mentioned Brandon Marshall, Julian Edelman, and the rest of the players I have on this list are running backs. Actually, some of the guys I've thought
Can I-
about.
Well, here, can we bring up two wide receivers real quick?
Of course.
Well, and this isn't me being a biased Bears fan, but why isn't Devin Hester?
He'll get it. Like you said,
No, I understand that, but okay, his receiving, he was a return specialist. No one's going to break his records ever. He should have already been in because you gotta have it as kickers get in. They're special teams. He should have been considered as a special teamer.
But do
not
they
a wide
do
receiver.
those special teamers get in first ballot?
Hester did things that no one's ever going to do.
You're right. I completely agree with you. I agree he is a Hall of Famer. I just think there is arguments that are going against him right now that cause him not to be a Hall of Famer, aka he wasn't that good a receiver. And yes, he was the greatest return man of all time. I mean, we made a list. Go check out our TikTok. Like we said, he's number one.
Yeah, you can't debate the number one. There isn't anyone. There's some people close, but not that close. Not even Deion. That's my opinion. But the other receiver that I was going to bring up is he actually played with Larry Fitzgerald.
Are we talking about who I think we're talking about? Won a
Well,
Super Bowl
sure.
for the Ravens.
Yeah.
Anquan Boldin.
Statistically, he should be up. He's up there with Marshall and all those guys.
He is. He's honestly probably one of the most. I mean, Yeah, I mean, that's someone who I didn't even think about. Someone I know, like, yeah, his first couple years in the league were record-breaking, if I remember.
He's a quiet guy. He doesn't make a lot of noise, so people don't talk about him. That's just one that I think of off my head.
Anquan Boldin.
You want to write? Yeah, say his numbers real quick.
13,779 receiving yards with 82 touchdowns on 1,076 receptions. 3-time Pro Bowler, Man of the Year. I didn't know he got that. Offensive Rookie of the Year and Super Bowl champ. So yeah, I think he will eventually.
I mean, that compares very well to Brandon Marshall's numbers. Like, Marshall has 970 receptions, 12,351 yards, and 83 touchdowns. So,
yeah, they're
pretty
very
similar numbers. And if you want to make the argument he won, he I believe was I don't remember if him or Torrey Smith was the wide receiver one, but I mean, they're both key contributors to that offense. I mean, Dennis Pitta, Jacoby Jones, Ray Rice. He was beating them up on the field.
He was dangerous in Arizona because I would say him and Larry Fitz played very similar because they're big body receivers. I mean, geez, Anquan Boldin, remember he got his jaw broken.
I forgot about that, yeah. I believe for a while.
You just forget about it because he doesn't talk a lot to the media. He doesn't do anything with social media now. You know what I mean? He's just the guy that just kind of faded away.
Well, and the Offensive Rookie of the Year and Walter Payton Man of the Year is pretty big.
Yeah.
For him.
Yeah, I mean, Marshall has a couple, like he was a first team, second team All-Pro, and a he was a 6-time Pro Bowler. So that might, those accolades it depends what you want to value more. And obviously, Marshall also has, the record for most catches in the game. Obviously, if you're going to hold a record, that's not one of the fancy ones to hold, but it's...
Yeah, I'd say Marshall beats him.
But it's close. Like, people...
Beats him
now is because Marshall does a lot for NFL player mental health now, and I think that's what pushed him over the edge.
He's done a lot.
I just wish Marshall would have gotten that mental health taken care of when he played in Chicago, man.
Yeah, that was...
Yeah, those two personalities.
Yeah.
One might get in, the other might not.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to use... I mean, my closet's right over there, and I have his jersey. He's one of my favorite... he was, that big body receiver. I'm just imagining that game against the Packers where he literally did a whole, 180 to catch a touchdown, and that winner go home against the Packers. Like that.
I wanted his.
What about?
I wanted his Bears jersey when I was a kid.
What's your question, Brett?
I just want to. Are there any Chicago Bear running backs on that list?
No, because the only one that isn't in the Hall of Fame is Forte, and I think Forte is a guy that will have to wait a little bit because I have a couple guys on the list that I would argue deserve it more. Would you like me to read them?
Yes.
Adrian Peterson. Obviously, if any running back's going to get in, he's the guy that gets in.
I got nothing to say against that.
No, he's the best running back we've seen since.
But Adrian Peterson is not retired, sir.
Technically, no. So he's going to have the longer he waits to officially retire, but he's going to get in. As soon as he retires, he could be a first ballot. Honestly,
there shouldn't be any question with Adrian Peterson.
No,
none whatsoever.
The question isn't if it's
boom.
Yeah.
It should be soon.
Another guy who has the yards, but maybe not the accolades, partially because he played until he was a 40-year-old man. Frank Gore.
Yes.
The numbers. It's a numbers game. Like you said, it matters about stats, and he has the stats. He might not be one of the best running backs, but he has the numbers to back up a Hall of Fame career.
I know we're not supposed to take character in, but those guys do, and Frank Gore always had with the stand-up. What did Frank Gore... You ever hear Frank Gore do anything wrong? Ever?
Nope. Didn't he mess up a boxing fight? Like, didn't he try boxing and got KO'd right away? That's the only thing. Like, that's not even...
Well, that's not... I meant, during, on a team.
No.
Disruption.
And he has a great story, too. Like, tore his ACL, I believe, twice at Miami.
He overcame a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's just one of those workhorse running backs. I would say he's a running back kind of like Emmitt Smith.
That's who I was thinking of. Yeah, I would say Emmitt Smith's a better running back, but Frank Gore. I mean, it's a longevity issue.
Yeah.
I hate to upset you Dallas fans listening or watching this, but Frank Gore never had that offensive line.
The Niners line was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Staley, Anthony Davis, Iapati there for a little bit was a good guard.
I
for him.
know, but you can't argue that.
Those 49ers offenses, though, in the mid to late 2000s weren't that good, but those early 2010 offenses were pretty good, especially with, Kaepernick there a couple years with the read option.
Either way, they're both, like, here, Frank Gore will get in. It's just going to take him longer. That's all.
Yeah. And the last one I had, or what were you going to say, Cody? Sorry.
Oh, yeah, I was just agreeing. And he holds the record for the most games played by a running back, so it's just a matter of time for him.
Yeah,
because I doubt really anyone's going to beat that, especially the way the game is now.
Unless they're just not starting. But Frank Gore, for the most part, was starting all those.
Yeah.
Yeah, for Gore, Adrian Peterson, it's not about if, it's about when. But this next guy who's been waiting a long time.
I'll be upset if Peterson doesn't get in before Gore.
I won't be upset because I know that's the way it works. People get in before other people that are more deserving of it because Hall of Fame sucks. But
not to mention Gore retired first, so he's got a couple years on him. Because you know how it is. You gotta wait 4 years after you retire and whatever. It's complicated.
That's like saying right now, in theory, in my opinion, shouldn't have to wait. Should have his gold jacket tomorrow.
Yeah, but it's just sticking to the rules. Last one, Shaun Alexander. Someone, MVP, first team, second team All-Pro, 3-time Pro Bowler, 2000s All-Decade team, 9,000 career total yards, 100 total touchdowns. Actually, those are career rushing yards and touchdowns, but also 1,500 yards on the ground with 1,500 receiving and 12 touchdowns through the air too.
How many games played?
I don't have the games played, but I mean
I can look that up real quick.
What's his stats compared to AP?
Well, compared to AP,
they're worse.
They're worse, obviously.
Yeah, no.
Because he only had 9. Would AP have like 18?
I have a hard time with the Alexander. I'm not sure.
I think he still does because he has an MVP, which is pretty big for a
running back. Yeah.
Running back.
He had one of the best. I mean, he took the Seahawks to the Super Bowl.
If he didn't have the MVP, then he wouldn't be in conversation.
I mean, he
probably not.
He led the Seahawks to a Super Bowl with Matt Hasselbeck as the quarterback. I mean, I know Hasselbeck was a decent, starting quarterback, but what did he do in his NFL career other than say he's going to get the ball and throw a touchdown and throw a pick six?
I'm sure he's been to a few Pro Bowls.
He has, but so, I mean, do you want to look at who was on the Pro Bowl this year for quarterbacks?
No. It was different then. They didn't have these little junk.
But I know it doesn't matter, but I have something that I think should be helpful for his Hall of Fame career choice.
He does have a couple. He has a rushing yard. He was a rushing yards leader, and 2-time rushing yard leader. So.
Yeah.
I know it doesn't matter, but if this should help. If I can.
I love that game.
This should help. I know it's a little glary, but
no.
I know Peyton Hillis was on a cover, but
he's pardon my language, everyone, but you beat him.
But look at that year. He led the Seahawks to the Super Bowl. He had over 2,000 all purpose yards. Like
you're right. You're right. The MVP and the yards make it, but I believe there's other running backs that will get in before him because of yards.
If I remember right, he has the most rushing yards in a season. LT has the most touchdowns, I believe. I forget which way that works.
No, he doesn't.
I think LT has the most all-purpose yards combined.
Well, I was talking about the touchdowns.
But here,
he's up there though. He's like 1 or 2 or 2.
Alexander doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
Alexander doesn't hold up.
Well, I bet.
As an example, you know how we were talking about Edelman making it, right? Because of the accolades he has.
Yeah.
That to me is then you need to consider like, okay, I'm going to bring up one last person and we should move on to our next segment. And I'm not doing this, well, I guess I am because I'm a Bears fan because I know his stats. But Charles Tillman, Hall of Famer or not?
Eventually. I mean, he holds the record for most forced fumbles by someone who's I don't know if it's I know he has the most in the season, most in the game. I don't know if he has the career because OCU Minora, I believe, is ahead of him.
No, but I think it's by a defensive back.
By a non-defensive lineman, yeah.
Yeah.
I
don't know. He's someone, and if you take his accolades, how many Walter Payton of the Man of the Year awards did he win? A lot.
I believe only one, but he was up like every year.
Oh, yeah. Okay. You know.
But yeah, he's a great. I mean, if we're taking that good guy consideration, yeah, he's up there. I mean, speaking of the Panthers Super Bowl, I wish they would have won for him. I know he was on there. Peppers, Jared Allen. Like, there's a lot of vets I wanted them to win a Super Bowl.
He got hurt. He got his quad torn, or not his quad, his bicep torn again that year.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, because it was.
Actually, Cody, while you're looking it up, gonna ask have you look? Is Joe Thomas in the Hall of Fame yet, or no?
This is this year, I believe him, Darrell Revis, Zach Thomas.
Here, I'm not gonna. I think over all those players are great, but Joe Thomas should be like a no question, like right away, first time because
he was.
You know, he never missed a game in his career.
Old until I believe his last season he tore something.
Okay, yeah, but no, it's one of those records, kind of like how Brett Favre played X amount of games, without missing, and that's for an offensive lineman, that is very hard to do.
Yeah, I mean, him, DeBrickashaw Ferguson. I mean, I don't think he's a Hall of Famer, but like something like that, he's missed one snap in his NFL career, and it was because they took him out to put in like Darrell Revis on a trick play. Like, obviously, I don't think he's a Hall of Famer, but
there's certain players that just there's no question, and he was one that came to my mind.
Fun fact.
Yeah, back to.
Well, I was just gonna say, fun fact: Joe Thomas is the first offensive lineman in NFL history. I always think about every time I hear Joe Thomas, I think of that I think it was Thursday Night Football broadcast. They put that on the screen instead of, I think it was like to play X amount of snaps in a row or something. And they just messed it up.
The offensive lineman in NFL. But, yeah, back to Charles Tillman, I think he definitely will. He's tied with Robert Mathis with the most.
Yeah. I mean, he has the fumbles, Peanut Punch, it's named after him.
Yeah, he's tied with Robert Mathis and
I've
never known
Minora.
Yeah, I've never been able to say his name, so
I memorized when the Giants went to the Super Bowl in 2012. I memorized it, so I would never mess it up again. But yeah, that's all we got for you today, guys. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Follow our social medias. Our TikTok right now, we're doing a lot of content every single day on there, so I'll definitely follow that if you're gonna follow anything. Keep an eye out also on our social medias for fantasy football updates. We will be doing two different kind of leagues. So keep an eye on that. I'll say something more about it next week, but definitely keep an eye on those because we'll be starting that soon.
Really exciting, yeah.
Yeah. There might not be some prizes per se with it, but one league will for sure be a money league if you're willing to spend a couple bucks. So keep an eye on that. It's going to be fun, but that's all we have for you. So have a good one, everybody.
Later.